Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any stranger, the Washington Post has a lead you just won't believe. Hi, I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. And Bill, sometimes you just have to read something verbatim. And so I'm reading to you from the December 21st edition of the Washington Post, a story by Colby Itkowitz. And I don't usually mention reporters' names, but I just like saying Itkowitz. So Colby Itkowitz wrote this lead. After 3 years in office, President Donald Trump has remade the federal judiciary, ensuring a conservative tilt for decades and cementing his legacy no matter the outcome of November's election. Bill, I almost dropped my tablet computing device when I read that in the Washington Post. What do you make of that lead on a story in such a well-known bastion of liberal thought?
I don't take anything that comes out of that newspaper as meaning anything. It does. You might as well have quoted it off of the back of a paper bag in a parking lot at the A&P.
I could really scribble it on this napkin if that would make it more meaningful.
That would give it a little more. Would give it more credibility anyway. I really don't. One of the many reasons that this, I don't even know what to call it anymore. I really don't know what to call it anymore.
Can I give you some stats here? Because this is what the lead comes from, okay? So the president, President Trump, the 45th president of the United States, has already appointed some 25% of circuit court posts or positions. He's appointed 187 judges to the federal bench. Of the 50 circuit court judges the president has appointed, granted, 2/3 of those were already Republican appointed judges, but another third of them were not. He has flipped 3 circuit courts to GOP appointed majorities, 3 of the U.S. Federal Circuit Courts of Appeals. He has been appointing younger conservative judges, and thus the allegation or the assertion that they will, for decades into the future, affect decisions. This is what the folks at the Post are looking at and saying, even if President Trump doesn't win the election, he has already done the one thing that most conservatives cared most about when they voted for him.
Well, I think that goes without saying. And what we saw, I'm willing to bet that the guy who wrote this article for the Washington Post left out the character assassination and all the rest of the stuff that was necessary to get Brett Kavanaugh appointed to the bench. And as you know, Gorsuch replaced a missing conservative who's deeply missed in the case of Scalia. Gorsuch replaced so-called moderate. And when a liberal goes, especially the liberal goes, having watched what I've watched in the last couple of weeks and having watched the Gorsuch thing and utterly convinced that I could never see anything worse than that, but having watched what I've watched in the last couple of weeks, I realize that when they can no longer cover the fact that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is no longer fit to sit on the Supreme Court, what they will do in order to block a conservative from taking that position will be beyond our worst possible nightmares. The one thing I've learned in this last year is that there is no bottom for these people. None. There's nothing that they won't do to hold on to power. Nothing. Well, there's no lies they won't tell. There's no character assassination they won't immediately and enthusiastically commence to. There's no restrictions on character, on their behavior, on their posterity. None of it. There's nothing that they won't do. Nothing. And when the next time for that vote comes up, it is my fervent hope that Donald Trump finds the most conservative person he can find in the United States of America. And I don't care whether they're qualified to sit on the bench or not. I'll take Judge Roy Bean at this point, honestly. And I think you put him on the court and you put them there and you just keep smashing them in the face until this particular strain of the Democratic Party understands that it's just not working. The court is how the left governs America because the court consists of professors, and you only need to get 5 of them. If you get 5 people to vote your way, why bother with having 430 representatives or 425, forget the number now because I'm so damn upset about this whole thing, and 100 senators? And why even bother about the number of people in the country and how many states voted for the president? All that stuff is all so, so arcane. All you have to do really is get 5 people to vote the way you want them to vote. And those 5 people then will overturn laws that you don't like. And they'll make sure that the laws that you do like are engraved in stone. And if anything should come up, then it doesn't matter what happens, doesn't matter what the actual reality on the ground is. You own the top court. And if you own the top court, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's legal. Doesn't matter if it's moral. Doesn't matter at all. The fact that the Supreme Court could make the ruling that they ruled on just in regard to the Commerce Clause, if any of you actually thought that it is possible for Supreme Court justices to read and understand the Constitution and that they would fulfill their oaths of office, you just have to look at that particular decision where an ornamental clause in the Constitution was basically used to tell somebody he can't grow his own food on his own farm, and furthermore, to tell the rest of the country that we all have to buy this health insurance whether we like it or not. All the rest of it, I'm not convinced. It is all just power and blood sports now, and so this is how they want to play. Now we're going to find out whether or not they're going to pay for it. But if it turns out that the American people are feeling, as I feel about this, at least enough of them, then Donald Trump will get reelected, and he will put another 3 or 4 justices on that Supreme Court, and any possible sense that I might have had that maybe, to be fair, maybe we shouldn't, is gone out the window. These people have no honor. They have no patriotism. They don't care about anything. Nancy Pelosi wants her 757, and by God, she'll do anything she asked you to get it. And so I don't care anymore. I want the most conservative judges that we can possibly find, and I want Donald Trump reelected, and I want a big majority in the Senate and a big majority in the House so they can make all the noise they want to outside. And I want these people to go through like that. And then maybe the rest of the people in the Democratic Party will realize what the people who have taken over the Democratic Party have brought them in terms of ruin. But I'm not convinced that awakening is, well, I'm certainly sure that awakening is not going to happen until the Democratic Party gets an awful lot more pain than they're experiencing right now.
Well, and Bill, to your finger-snapping comment, they are actually going through like that, and it's thanks in large part to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who has helped to reform the procedures. So the president is getting an opportunity to get a lot more of his appointees through the process because McConnell, among other things, shortened the debate time from 30 hours per nominee down to 2 hours. He's also largely gotten rid of the procedure that was known as blue slips, which allowed a home state senator to be able to essentially block the nomination of an appointee from his home state. So he's eliminated that procedure. And so McConnell, in many ways, is the engine behind the Trump conservative judge appointment machine. And by the way, I mentioned some stats early on that President Trump had appointed 50 circuit court judges. At the same time, in his administration, President Obama had appointed 25. In his entire 8 years, he only appointed 55, and President Trump has already done 50.
I've heard Mitch McConnell say, let no seat go unfilled.
Let no vacancy go unfilled. That's
vacancy go unfilled, yeah. So now you have to ask yourself, and this is one of those rare occasions where I find myself actually grateful about something changing my mind. I had nothing but contempt for Mitch McConnell for the 10 years that he was Senate Majority Leader under the Democrats with Barack Obama. Nothing but contempt for him. And the same largely for people like Lindsey Graham. But in the last calendar year or so, I have watched what I knew was out there, what I always saw coming, not just saw coming, what I knew was the operational basis of this progressive wing of the Progressive Party. And this is why I've been fighting them so hard. But it appears to me that with the result of the Kavanaugh confirmation filthiness and then this whole impeachment thing, it seems like the immorality, the illegality, the lack of honor, the lack of any kind of any sort of, forget even virtue, any kind of limitations on just plain vileness has become so flagrant that even Mitch McConnell can see it. Even Lindsey Graham can see it. And what I found, looking at it from geostationary orbit, is that it seems that it has something finally has penetrated that senatorial bubble of comity and fraternity and well, we're senators and we don't mock our own and we don't. No, I think something finally is sharp enough to have gotten through that Senate bubble and made these people, among others, realize what is going on out there. And I would say we will owe most of those seats to Nancy Pelosi, who has somehow managed to activate this fully armed and operational Senate, which seems to be finally operating at something like its normal operating temperature. I think this is the first of many, 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 many things that this entire move to the far left has cost the Democrats. We know how many, did they lose 1,000 seats during Obama's administration? Elected seats in House representatives and state representatives and so on?
Across the country, yeah, it was in that ballpark.
Across the country, it's like about 1,000 seats, yeah. Okay, well, they're keeping it up. And every day we find out more and more and more that the rules of a democracy, that is how we select the representatives of our republic, are not rules that they're willing to follow. And so, since they're not willing to follow the rules, they should be ejected from having anything to do with the rules. And that's exactly what's happening. And it is another indication that this unbearable pain of watching this namelessly base and just repulsive activity that I've seen on the part of these people. This is one of the silver linings out there that say that, yeah, maybe that's what it would take. Maybe it would take the American people to see these low, conniving, manipulating, power-hungry collectivist tyrants in their full glory, really, really at their absolute clearest in terms of motivation. Maybe that's what it takes to wake up Mitch McConnell and to wake up all the rest of these people and to wake up the American people. For those of us who've been paying attention, we've seen this going on. But let me just put it to you this way, Scott. If you can turn Mitch McConnell into a conservative firebrand, you have done something remarkable. And I suspect that all you have done is awaken a sleeping giant and filled him with a terrible resolve.
So there's one final quote I'd like to give to you here that I think you'll find just absolutely adorable. This comes from a guy named Chris Kang, who runs an organization or is part of an organization called Demand Justice. But Chris Kang actually oversaw President Barack Obama's selection and vetting process for court nominees. And what does he know about justice? This is a Chris Kang quote here. Republicans have been using the courts to achieve policy priorities that they couldn't achieve through the democratically elected legislative branch of government. And then he goes on to say Democrats have long been reluctant to talk about the courts in a political way.
No, heaven forfend.
Because liberals cling to the romantic notions of our courts as impartial, and that's not the reality, and that's not how Republicans see it. Bill, that's practically word for word what Republicans have been saying for years about Democrats, and here's this leading Democrat deep into the Obama administration's judicial appointee process who is saying the exact opposite thing.
Yeah, don't we remember some news source, it wasn't even worth mentioning, I don't remember what it was, saying that the problem with Facebook is that it's so right-leaning? Look, this is how they function. This is what they do. Okay, sure. YouTube is heavily biased towards conservatives, whatever you say, and the liberals have no desire whatsoever to bring politics into the court system because they've got that kind of ideological purity. Whatever you say, you go on saying whatever you want to say. One of two things is happening: either this guy believes this stuff, in which case he has lived in the Washington echo chamber long enough for him to soon realize that he's going to be living on the outside of the echo chamber. Or, I think more likely, he understands that all of the power of the left is predicated upon making people feel guilty for things that they did not do. That's it. They don't have guns. They don't have good ideas. They don't have anything attractive. They can't tell people what they really want because nobody wants to buy it. So the only way they have to sell these ideas, well, they can't sell them. Let me rephrase that. The only way they have to fraudulently peddle these ideas is to make sure that they are in a position where they say, if you don't buy this, you're a terrible, bad person. You don't want to be a bad person, do you? It turns out most people in America don't want to be bad people. And for 15, 20, 30 years now, we've had this entire dynamic working. You don't want to say anything because you don't want to be called a racist. And you don't want to be called a racist because you're not a racist. And that's what they understand. That's what they understand. They understand the constraints of people who are decent and honorable and who respect the rule of law. They understand that if you're dealing with a part of the country that respects the rule of law and you can break the law, then that part of the country won't react in a law-breaking fashion. They'll react in the fashion of people who respect the law, which hamstrings us enormously. They'll take all of these short-term advantages, and they are short-term advantages. And so they have all of the short-term advantages that criminals have. They don't have to play by the rules. They don't have to tell the truth. They can accuse anybody of anything they want to, and they can destroy as many lives as they feel it takes in order for them to continue. These are all the advantages of people who we'll just broadly call criminals, dishonest people. Dishonest car salesman has an awful lot of advantages over an honest car salesman in the short term. But in the long term, honesty pays and respect pays and the rule of law pays and all of it pays in the long term. And the one thing I see more and more and more and more and more every day is that we are no longer in the short term. Now we're actually in the long term, where these actions have started to have the kind of consequences that people are simply beginning to understand what they are up against. And I keep coming back to this, and I know a lot of people think it's frivolous and they think it's absolutely pointless, but I am telling you, just trust me on this one. I called Donald Trump 2 days after Romney lost, although not by name. The fact that Star Wars is in smoking ruins, the most beloved entire religion, the most beloved single thing in the pop culture is in smoking ruins, and it's in smoking ruins because the left put their merchandise into that particular little pot, is an indication that the American people, even progressive kids, don't want it. And they would rather see it burn than swallow it. That is good news on this Christmas holiday. These are good tidings of great joy that should be to all people. The fact that when they put their actual stuff that they're selling on display, the American people would rather watch the store burn than buy the damn stuff. And if that doesn't give you hope and cheer, then I suspect that you're probably not aware of where the fight really is. I recall St. Andrew's words that politics is downstream of culture, and the culture's had enough of this, and the politics seem to be having had enough of it too. And I'd like to live long enough to see all of these people get the punishment they deserve, and the punishment they deserve more than anything is to be out of power and anonymous. Hillary Clinton, who should be in jail by any laws of the universe and any form of justice, should be in jail. I suspect is not in jail because I suspect that a loving God understands that worst thing for her than being in jail, where she gets to be a martyr, is for her to walk out here among the living as a loser, as a object of contempt and an object of scorn and ridicule. I believe that is divine punishment for Hillary Clinton, and I hope she has a long life so that she gets to enjoy as much of this as she possibly can. So that's where we are in Christmas of 2019. This tide has turned quite a while ago, and just because the battle has turned doesn't mean the battle is over. In World War II and the Civil War and in most wars, most of the dying happens after the war's already been won. That's the way it is.
To finish up on a final positive note here, and you don't have to comment on this unless you want to, but just one last little statistic. On the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is that Western District, it's something like 9 states, during the Trump administration, that circuit or that Court of Appeals Circuit Court of Appeals has gone from an 11-seat edge in favor of Democrat-appointed judges to a 3-seat edge. So the Democrat-appointed judges still have a majority on that court, but now it is a much smaller majority than before.
All I will say to that is, if that sounds like good news to you, and you stay home on the 1st November of 2020, anything that happens to this country after that will be on your shoulders.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are glad that the folks at BillWhittle.com, those members who contribute on a monthly and annual basis, have continued to see fit to support this enterprise, and their ranks are growing. In addition, we're really excited about getting to meet some of you in person on a cruise in May of 2020. You can sign up you can reserve your cabin for just $75 if you do it before Christmas. I don't know if this video is even coming out before Christmas, but
you might have a few minutes anyway.
That's right. Get right on that. The prices are reasonable for these cabins, and not only will you get to see live productions of both Right Angle and Bill Whittle Now, but you'll get to interact with Bill and myself and Stephen Green, and frankly, even better yet, other members at BillWhittle.com, right, which I think is going to really be the hit of the time there. So it's a 3, what is it?
Selling
4
well,
days or
it's
3
really,
days, Bill?
Yeah, it's 3 nights.
It's 3 nights.
And it's selling well. All the cool kids have already bought tickets or are buying them. So for God's sakes, don't get left out. We really want to turn this into something fun. And since it's going to be coming up just 4 or 5 months before the election, not only something fun, but something where we can just ammo everybody up and go out there and march on to the kind of victory we deserve.
You're out there alone, and if you've got these ideas, you feel like you're in the minority. And it's great every once in a while to get together with a bunch of like-minded people and to be able to see that you're not alone and that this is much bigger than just us. And so we look forward to sharing good fellowship and beautiful surroundings as we go on that cruise in May of 2020. You can go to BillWhittle.com. Go to BillWhittleCruise.com to get details. We'll provide a link in the description below, as well as from BillWhittle.com. If you'd like to become a member at BillWhittle.com, go there and click that Become a Member link. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.